Hoi folks, good morning, good afternoon and good evening wherever you are in the world. My name's Sean, aka Uncle Frogface, and welcome to today's video. If this is your first time here, then hello and welcome. If this is not your first time here, then welcome back. So today I'm going to be continuing my series of doing miniature master studies. So if you haven't seen my previous video, we took a tiny 5 by 7 centimeter canvas and we painted a replica of Van Gogh's Starry Night on it. Today I'm going to be taking another one of those canvases and painting a replica of Edvard Munch's Scream. So, really popular painting. I found out a lot about it that I didn't know beforehand, which I'll share with you. But enough talking. Let's switch camera, we'll go to the top down and we'll get stuck into today's video. And here we are. So this is one of our tiny canvases. So just to show you, this is 5 centimeters by 7 centimeters, or if you prefer inches. There we go. Okay, so as always with these mini studies, I have my reference. So here we are. Now the aspect ratio of this is not quite right, and this is actually painted on either paper or cardboard. I think it's cardboard. So I need to prepare my canvas and basically make it look like it's cardboard with a bit of gesso and paint. And here we are, all dry. I just hit this with a hairdryer to dry it off. This took me all of 3 minutes. And now I'm going to take my proportional measuring device. So I use this on the Starry Night as well. And I've got my washi tape here. So just as with Starry Night, the aspect ratio of these tiny canvases are not quite the same as the large canvases. So I've set this out so that the width is correct. And now if we do the same with the height on the wider end, we can make sure our small canvas is the right aspect ratio. So I'm just going to take a coloured pencil, mark off, and then mask off with a bit of this washi tape. And I use washi tape rather than masking tape because even masking tape sometimes can pull up the paint underneath, but washi tape, I mean, I'm a recent convert and I absolutely love it. It makes life so much easier. It comes off really nice and clean afterwards. Okay, so now we've got our aspect ratio correct. I'm going to go through, same as I did with Starry Night, and start measuring out some of the kind of the markers of the canvas of major landmarks. I mark them all out, and I'm doing this with a coloured pencil because that won't interact with the paint when we start laying down paint. And this is the quick sketch that I have. Again, it only took a few moments, and we are straight into painting that quickly. So you can see my palette on the side there when it was in shot. I've just got tiny little dots of paint, so this is really economical for paint use. And I'm just going to come in and start laying in some of the colours. So some of the interesting things I found out about the Scream is that it's actually not a singular painting. There are several versions of this. So it was originally conceived from a walk in nature that Edvard Munch took with 2 friends, and that's the 2 friends in the background there. But the scream itself is not the figure in the front, it's not the person screaming, it's actually the scream of nature around. And I'll read an extract from Edvard Munch's diary in just a moment. But the actual painting itself, there's 2 oil paintings, which are not technically just oil paintings, because they also use tempera and pastels, both chalk and oil, so they're mixed media paintings. But everyone thinks of them as oil paintings. There are some pastel drawings, there's some pencil drawings, there's a lithographic print as well. So this has actually from the artist been done several times. So whilst I'm using kind of the most well-known as my inspiration for this, I'm not sticking that rigidly to it because there are other versions of it as well. So I want to give a bit of a feel of my own take on this. But as I said, this came from a walk in nature that Edvard Munch took with a couple of friends. So I'm going to take a moment and just read a little bit from Edvard's diary. One evening I was walking along a path. The city was on one side and the fjord below. felt tired and ill. I stopped and looked out over the fjord. The sun was setting and the clouds turning blood red. I sensed a scream passing through nature. It seemed to me that I heard the scream. I painted this picture, painted the colours as actual blood. The colour shrieked. This became the scream. So I don't know about you, but I found that pretty interesting. So here, again, I'm just laying in some more of the colours. You can really see those blood red colours shining through, particularly when we start putting the yellow in there as well. So now I've kind of got the sky and the lake and the fjord. It's time to come in and start looking at some of the other details. So first of all, I want to put in the people in the background. And tiny paintbrush. And this is a bit of Persian blue and a tiny dot of black, really watered down. And there's a bit of that in the water as well, so I'm just popping that in. This painting really is kind of layered up and layered up. You can see that it was worked on and worked on and worked on. So this was, like all of these mini paintings, it was a lot of fun to do. It's kind of nice to not have to think about what you're actually painting and just go ahead and replicate someone else's piece. You know, you learn a lot about perspective, in this case a bit of warped perspective, the colours that have been used as well, and just how the whole piece was really constructed, because to paint something like this you really have to study the original piece, and you know, by looking at something we can understand it a little bit better. I didn't, for instance, realise there was quite so much yellow in this painting. There's actually quite a lot, and it gives it a slight sickening feeling. At least that's what I kind of felt as I was looking a bit closer at it. So I think once I've got these railings in here, I'm going to start working on some of the smaller details before I get onto the actual figure itself. I was also surprised at quite how much of the surface underneath shines through. So the walkway that they're on, the bridge, there's actually quite a lot of that paper texture and that paper colour coming through. And there we go. Also with this figure there's actually kind of a red underpainting, so I put a little bit of that in. I'm just going over with a bit of that washed out bluey black colour and putting in this figure's clothing. Because this is so small as well, it dries very quickly. So each little section dries really quickly. And then we're in with the face. I'm coming in quite bright because I know I want to dull this down and knock it back. I'm just getting the basic shape in there. And you can see that red is still shining through a little bit, which is great. You know, there's a lot of red in this painting. There's actually some red highlights on this figure as well. So one side has got some blue highlights and shadows. The other side has got some red. So it definitely helps with that part. There we go, I think I'm pretty done with the kind of overall, yeah, and then these nostrils, which were much too big, but that's fine. I'll come back and fix that later. So here you can see I've switched away from paintbrush and instead I'm using a dotting tool. So I found with the Starry Night it was really hard to kind of get lines and consistent lines, and this painting has a lot of kind of scribbled lines on it with pastels. So I wanted to replicate that with this dotting tool, and it worked fairly well. I think I'll definitely use this again. And the other thing you'll notice is that I'm using my finger quite a lot as well, so I can place the paint with this dotting tool really accurately and then smudge and smear with my finger. So don't be scared to use your fingers when you're painting, whatever size you're painting. Really get involved and get stuck in and use our fingers. So I'm going first with a light blue for those pastel lines, and now with a kind of greeny turquoise colour, and now some red, deepening some of those blood sky parts, and then again with the face, using the dotting tool rather than the brush to really place where I want the paint to be. So more shadow in there, and it means that I can really get a nice shape to that mouth. Work on those eyes. There we go, we can fix that nostril with a paintbrush, there we go. And just gradually build up on working those details, add a bit of blue to the figure's clothes. And then add a bit more of this yellow. We lost a bit of it, so we need to bring a little bit of that back. And then there's quite a lot of white in the background as well. So I'm just adding that in as well, smoothing it out with my finger. A few little touch-ups on the face and the hands. This is such an iconic piece as well. I really enjoyed doing this. Lovely, and the little ships in the background. And there we have it, all completed. We have another painting ready for my future miniature gallery, which I'm determined to set up once I've moved house. I'm planning on having a little shelf and setting up like a little gallery with artworks and sculptures. So, just for comparison's sake, here is a 50p piece, and you can see the size of that there. I mean, it completely covers the figure up here and those figures back there. This is a tiny, tiny painting. I highly recommend doing this kind of thing. It's so quick. This whole thing took me less than an hour. It took hardly any paint. The canvases are really, really cheap. And it's just a little bit of fun on a dreary afternoon. Can't wait for the spring and the sun to really start coming out. But anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed today's video. As always, I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.